After 14 years of stagnant economic growth, higher debt and economic uncertainty. And we have seen global economic uncertainty play out in the last week. But leadership is not about ducking these challenges. It is about rising to them. The economic headwinds that we face are a reminder that we should, indeed we must, go further and faster in our plan to kickstart economic growth that plunged under the last government. By bringing stability to the public finances after years of instability under the party opposite, unlocking investment that plummeted under the previous government, and pushing ahead with the essential reforms to our economy and public services. That is my message to the House today. Because if we get it right, the prize on offer to us, to the British people, is immense. The opportunity to make working people off by making Britain better off. That is the mandate that this government has, and this is what we will deliver.
Chair of the Treasury Select Committee, Dane.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I welcome my right honourable friend's commitment to growth in this country and to encourage investment in the UK. Listening, though, to the Shadow Chancellor, you'd think that the country was going to hell in a handcart. And doesn't she agree with me that there is no time for panic, that it is perfectly possible to manage any pressures on the budget through astute management of public spending, and that compared with the years of austerity on the last side, we are a very, very long way from that approach?
Chancellor.
I thank the Chair of the Select Committee for that question. I set out the fiscal rules of this government at the budget in October, that we will pay for day-to-day spending through tax receipts and that we will get debt down as a share of the economy. We remain committed to those fiscal rules and we will meet them at all times.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Chancellor for advance sight of her statement. Let's be blunt. The budget hasn't worked. The Chancellor says that the government's #1 mission is growth, but to date there are no signs that the government is going to deliver it. The national insurance contributions rise is self-defeating. It undermines growth, it does not unleash it, and it piles pressure onto struggling small businesses and high streets. Neither does it raise anything like the sums of money for the NHS which the government initially suggested that it would. Now we have this much-lauded visit to China, but the government itself says that it is only worth £600 million to the UK over the next 5 years. This is equivalent to just 5.5 hours of NHS spending a year. That is 27.5 hours over the 5-year period. Mr Speaker, all growth is welcome, but this really is small beer. And what, Mr Speaker, are we to make of the Chancellor's pledge to improve existing channels with China? This is nothing short of warm words and mixed messages. The Chancellor should not have gone to China unless there was a commitment that Jimmy Lai was going to be released. Does the Chancellor now accept that the national insurance increase will damage growth? Does the Chancellor accept that there were and still are much fairer ways to raise the necessary revenue without holding back our economy and our high streets? The international market jitters we have seen in the last few days are largely caused by the threat of tariffs by the new Trump administration. So will the Chancellor guard against the risks of a Trump presidency by rebuilding our trading relationship with our European neighbours? And after the economic vandalism of the previous Conservative government and their mini-budget, our NHS and care services are still on their knees. Does the Chancellor accept that wealth and health are two sides of the same coin, and that scaling back any investment in the NHS would not only be devastating for local communities, but also damaging for economic growth?
I'm slightly confused by the response from the Honourable Lady. They oppose every decision that we made to get the public finances under control at the budget, and now they say that we need to spend more on public services. Well, I'm afraid the Honourable Lady can't have it both ways. The only way that there's more money for our public services is by raising that, as we did in the budget, decisions that the Liberal Democrats apparently oppose. And then the Honourable Lady says that £600 million isn't worth it. Well, that's £600 million of tangible benefits for British businesses trading overseas. I would have thought that the Honourable Lady would welcome enhanced trade and investment as a way to create more good jobs, paying decent wages in St Albans and indeed in all of our constituencies. Now, the Honourable Lady says that we shouldn't go to China because we need to raise difficult issues. Well, I'm not sure how the Honourable Lady thinks we're going to raise difficult issues unless we engage with the second biggest economy in the world. And because I went to China, I was able to raise issues around human rights, around forced labour, around Hong Kong and Jimmy Lai, and around the sanctioning of parliamentarians. You can't raise those issues unless you are in the room. I was in the room and therefore able to do just that. And I would finally just say to the Honourable Lady, this is the party that put £20 billion into the National Health Service at the budget in October. We were able to do that because of difficult decisions that we took, including on taxation. The Honourable Lady seems to want the additional money for public services, but without finding any way to pay for them. Well, that is the way that the party opposite got into the troubles they got into. I'm afraid the Liberal Democrats are going down exactly the same path.
Rachel Blake.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for raising the case of my constituent, Jimmy Lai? I know it will mean a lot to him and to his family. And does she agree with me that it is because of the profound differences that it is vital that we maintain this strategic engagement?
Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for what she's just said, and I think on behalf of the whole House we would want to send our best wishes to the family of Jimmy Lai at this difficult time. I had the opportunity to raise this as well as other issues during my time in China, and I think it is incredibly important that at every opportunity that we have, we raise some of the difficult issues and challenge the Chinese authorities in the way that is appropriate and consistent with our British values.
Sir Ian Duncan-Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the economic and financial dialogue was stayed because of the brutal imposition of the national security law in Hong Kong. So when the Chancellor and the Government now go back to engage and reopen that dialogue, she does so on the back that things have got worse, not better. And the reality I want to put to her is that while she was away, Cheyenne refused point blank in a select committee to answer the question whether they had slave labour in their supply chains, but the government wants them to register here in London. We have solar arrays being imported by the government here into the UK that demonstrably contain slave labour. So can I ask the Chancellor to be clear now to the House about the government's position on slave labour? Can she explain whether this government will allow any products or services or companies to align themselves here or import goods into here that contain any slave labour, no matter how important that import is?
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I thank the right honourable gentleman for that question, and I know how importantly he takes this issue, along with so many other members on both sides of the House. Listing of companies in the UK is a decision for the Financial Conduct Authority, but any company listing on the London Stock Exchange has to live up to the responsibilities set out by the United Nations and the OECD on issues of forced labour, and this government is committed to working with international partners and businesses to ensure that global supply chains are free from human and labour rights abuses. As the right honourable gentleman knows, under Section 54 of the Modern Slavery Act 2015, commercial businesses who operate in the UK and have a turnover of more than £36 million are required to report annually on the steps they have taken, and quite right so, because modern slavery is absolutely abhorrent and this government continues to take steps to deal with it.
Stephen Sander.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Firstly, may I remind members opposite that UK bond yields are rising for the same reason German and French bond yields are, and that is because they are tracking the US rate. They never were very good at numbers, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Chancellor set out her economic philosophy that our prosperity is built upon secure foundations, indeed in a more uncertain world. Can the Chancellor set out how she is building that economic security here, and particularly with reference to having domestic energy rather than dependent on foreign fossil fuel dictators?
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and he is absolutely